Duncan, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. So we're talking about Neighborhood Watch,
Okay.
which is a gripping suspense with Jack Quaid and Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And I guess the first question is like, how did you get that stellar cast pairing together?
Well, fortunately, Jack was a fan of my last movie, The Clove Killer, and so we were interested in working with each other, and it kind of came together at the same time, him and Jeff around the same time because they had worked together before on The Boys, and Jeff liked the my last movie, so it's kind of like it was a symbiotic thing. It was a mutually affirming situation, a little bit of interest from Jack helped Jeff get interested, and we had some conversations over Zoom that we just connected, all of us.
Excellent. Now, as far as I can tell, this is writer Sean Farley's first script. Like, where did this come from?
Sean is a hidden gem. He's super talented. He's got a great sense of narrative and structure. This script he wrote over 10 years ago, and it went through the various connections of producers and um, came together and fell apart. And I think he has a personal connection in his family to somebody with mental illness. And so that was a lot of the background for Simon. But as far as like the genesis of the story, you'd have to ask him. But Sean writes, I've read his other stuff. All of his scripts are good. And he loves a good redemption story about a character at rock bottom who goes through um, some crazy experience to redeem themselves. I would love to work with Sean again before he gets snatched up.
Right, before he gets too big for you. Um,
Yeah.
I was reading up on you and the Clove Hitch Killer, and one of the things that you said was that you it liked that it blend your comedic style with your love for minimalist suspense. And I noticed
Yeah.
there was some comedy in Neighborhood Watch as well, muted comedy. Tell me about finding the balance there.
It was primarily a comedy when I read it. It made me laugh. The dynamic between the two characters I thought was great. And it got a lot of laughs when I screened it for friends and family. So I wanted to do something that was suspenseful, but still like a little tip the scales more towards the funny side. And the balance was, just kind of like treating the actual mystery somewhat with a light touch. It's not really about human trafficking. The kidnapping is a little bit of a MacGuffin, but the simultaneously taking the characters really seriously, their concerns and their needs very sincerely, so that you can feel that they both like really need this, and hopefully there's an emotional payoff accordingly.
Yeah. Speaking of taking it seriously, let's talk about the character of Simon McNally. You want to have a respectful performance of mental illness. How did you and Jack work together with you as a director? Did you find you had to pull him in or actually push him farther in terms of the performance aspect of Simon's maladies?
That's a good question. It was a push and a pull. We worked together closely. A lot of discussion beforehand, research. I shared some books with him. We talked to Sean, who had a pretty deep backstory, a thorough backstory for Simon, and personal experience with people he knows who have schizophrenia. And we wanted to not be condescending to the character, and we wanted to find a way in that was relatable to both us and the audience, and when thinking about it, I these firsthand accounts of people who have experienced the illness, it's not like you're not there, right? There's a whole aware person inside a schizophrenic mind, and we did have some awkward In the first few days of shooting, kind of experimentation with what worked and what didn't. And Jack's the type of actor who is very game for doing multiple takes. He's very receptive to feedback. He's very open to experimentation, and that was key in the early stages of the shoot as we kind of dialed in what worked. And I think it was like giving Simon just like a little bit of pushback, a little bit of resentment. Um, that was very helpful in those early stages.
Now, were the word salad selections in the script, or did you sort of give Jack leeway on that?
Most of that was in the script. I think a couple of them might have been ad-libbed. Most of it was in the script.
And the pairing of Simon and the seriousness of his condition, and then Ed Dearman and his sort of self-imposed uh, isolation and misanthropy was a real treat. You know, having the two play off one another like that. When you say dialing in the characters so
Mm.
that they can speak to the audience, who is the audience for this film?
Yeah, so the question being, who is the audience? Me, and I like it, but I think it's got, even though it's an indie movie, it does have a universal appeal. I would hope that it does, but it's probably like kind of targeted towards like dads. It's got an old school flavor. It's about a relationship between two men, um, and it's about two men who have kind of lost their way and don't have any value, which is relevant to today's stuff. And you know, Ed Jeffrey Dean, he's a relic of the past and kind of like left behind. And Simon, he's just like a problem, right? And then people just don't want to deal with him. And so I don't I would hope that this movie would really appeal to anybody. So I don't want to limit it by saying who it's for, but I like that it was about two men.
Well, I hope it finds its audience, and I'm sure it will. I think that is our time. So thank you very much for talking to me today, and best of luck with the release of the film.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
All right, take care.